Excellent. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the SuperCaZt Live. Of course, I am the Superfosh. He is Steve Z, the Weird. And what's up, man?
Yeah, not much. Just finishing up this last week of school, grading some exams today. Got off a little bit early, and I was like, "Hey, let's just hop on here and do this," because
Yeah,
we've been trying for like 2 weeks. Like I noticed, I wrote
yeah,
this script on
yeah.
December the 7th. That
Mhm,
was when we were originally going to do it, but stuff happened, and then it got
mhm.
delayed, and then it got delayed. But here we are, finally live, talking
Yep.
about the good, the bad, the ugly. At least here in a little bit.
And if we have anybody at this point, please give us a like on this post and also share with your friends. Get them to hang out with us because, hey, we're just one big party. That's all we are, you know.
A very tame party, one that just involves talking about movies
Yeah.
and occasionally other topics, but
Yeah.
I guess it is a party
It's a party binge.
nonetheless.
So speaking of films, we've got some things to talk about. Like we said, I wanted to go ahead, as you can see right here, Superfosh. I'm a huge Superman fan. Superman trailer just dropped a few hours ago. You hadn't seen it, right, Steve?
No, I didn't have time. I
Okay,
basically finished running that errand, then I rolled in and
so
did this.
I'm about to be real vague, guys. Please don't spoil anything, even though can't really in a trailer, I
It's a,
guess.
it's bad
But
if you do spoil it in a
but
trailer.
But yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna be real since you haven't seen it, I'm gonna be real short with this. I'm not gonna go into a long rant like I did with you over the phone. But so this trailer is a lot of fun. Trailer has got a lot of good heart. They definitely do play on the Christopher Reeve version of the character, which I think they're kind of trying to lean back towards too, from the uh, graphic novel version that we've had with Henry Cavill, which I enjoyed too. I'm such a fan of Superman. I've enjoyed the Henry Cavill character. Uh, I tried to enjoy Brandon Routh, and I'm glad he came back for that little thing in the crossover with Flash film or whatever. But it's been tough for old Supes in the films, and I really think that James Gunn, which he's done. You're fans of the Guardian Galaxy movies, right, man? You've seen those.
Yeah, I like them okay. I don't want to get in my James Gunn thing right now. Like
Okay.
I think he's good. I actually like some of
Yeah.
his early movies a lot,
Yeah.
such as he has this movie called Super that was really cool,
Mm-hmm.
with that guy from
How
Office,
ironic is that?
Rainn Wilson.
Yeah.
So like that, I remember liking that. I remember he's probably wrote on a lot of stuff I liked, and I liked the
Mm-hmm.
first Guardians a lot. I think that was
Yeah.
a pretty good one. I could still
Mm-hmm.
put that one in and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't think he's worth the auteur status that people put him on, but
The what?
auteur, they act like he's some great American
Oh,
director, and I'm like,
right.
he's good, he's competent. I wouldn't say he's great though. I think he just kind of, I would
No.
say he knows how to get a good audience and like how to get them involved.
Well,
So I can give him that, and I think that's a good person that should be directing Superman. Really,
and he gets it. He gets the as I told you and I told my wife earlier, he has got this is going to be the mainstream comic book version of the character. It's very bright. Like I said, they have nods to the Christopher Reeve version, including they're going back to the original theme song, which I think is a good move. Everybody likes that song. So overall, and this guy's, you can ask Steve Z, you can ask my wife. About a year ago, I was not on board for this. I was as adamantly against it as I could ever be for any film ever. So let me ask you, Steve, have you ever had this experience where you were just totally against something and were like, this is just going to be trash. I can't believe they're doing this. And then you were like, wait, that's actually kind of good. So I'm gonna back up here. Like, have you ever had that experience? Because it's a really humbling experience. But like I told Scarlett, my wife, I was like, I'm not too proud to change and say I was wrong.
yeah.
So you ever had
Well,
that with a film?
I have, but I wouldn't say I was humbled. I was just like excited because it actually
Yeah,
happened the way
yeah,
it should happen.
right.
For me, it was Blade Runner 2049
Mm,
because I mean, Blade Runner is one of my favorite films of all time.
mm,
I think it's just an amazing film. It's one of the films that like changed. It's like it changed my life a little bit. So
mm.
it means a lot to me. and
Yeah.
I heard they announced a sequel for that, and I was like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
because at the time, I mean, it had been over 30 years
Yeah.
since the original, so you know how those things go generally. It's like
Yeah.
it's not a good
No.
move to do a
No.
sequel 30, 40 years after the fact, or
Yep.
even like at the time they started those. They hadn't really got into it too much, but they were doing a lot of reboots, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually we got these legacy sequels and stuff like that. And
Right.
I'm just not all about that. I think
Mm.
that's always bad.
Yeah.
But then I sat down to watch Blade Runner 2049
Mm.
after basically it'd been out for over a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just blown away. I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
really, really good. This is one of the best films I've seen in probably a couple years."
Right.
So I was just in heaven. I was just like, "This is amazing. I cannot believe I'm seeing this." Because I
It's
was against it, and I was like, "There's no point of this. This
yeah.
is dumb. Why are they
Yeah.
doing this?" So a little bit different, but I definitely know where you're coming from.
And that's the thing. Like, my biggest gripe wasn't that they were doing a Superman film. Look, I'm a Superman fan, and if they're gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna do," what I was mad about is they had built the Snyderverse that I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed. I'm gonna say it, and I was a fan of it. I had to grow into it. I remember watching the Man of Steel trailer, and I was telling my wife about this earlier this morning, and I said, I remember where I was. I was on vacation with my family, and I was sitting by the pool at our hotel, and I was watching this
Watching on a
on my
phone?
on a little iPhone, yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, yeah, it was all right. I think you remember I called you or something. I was like, I mean, it was okay. Russell Crowe looked cool, and I thought he did a good job as Jor-El. Nobody still knows who plays Jor-El, by the way, or at least I haven't heard.
He might not be in
Uh,
it.
but may not. But so and now this is what 13 years, 14 years later, whatever. Well, 11, I guess, years later, and so again, like I said a minute ago, I was totally against it a year ago. But then I slowly started seeing things, and that, like you said, I'm a big fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy, especially the first one. So I kind of slowly ventured into it. They showed the picture of him in the suit. The suit's totally different than Henry's, and I was like, okay, whatever. But then when I got to, as I told you today, the Kill Little Countdown, it had a little 10, 9, 8 thing, and it got to 10. I just thought this might not be too bad. I hadn't seen a frame or nothing. But I actually got emotional, man, when this trailer first started. It's an emotional, especially for fans of the character, and I am a true fan. I've been a fan since watching Fleischer cartoons on VHS back in the day. So, um, it was an emotional experience for me. But I'm with you on the whole. I saw somebody do a review on that Mufasa quote unquote live action film, and it's like they're just jumping on the Lion King bandwagon just because everybody's like, oh, Lion King was good, 25, 30 years ago, so this has got to be good. And it's
Yeah.
not. Like, it's just, it's that nobody can do anything original. And that was my thing with this. I was like, we just got done with, and I still feel like they didn't give DC didn't give Snyder a long leash because of backlash. There was a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
So, but there's my rant.
Yeah. I was about to get into another rant about that, but I was like,
Yeah,
we
let's
don't need
get
to go
into
to
it.
that'll turn like the 30 minutes of talk.
Yeah. But
But
long story short, and just to end it, so till we get to our main topic of the day, I liked it. Go watch it if you're a fan. If you don't like it, that's cool too. I think we get in bad habit of, if you don't like something, then you're wrong. Then the other person's wrong, and I hate that too. But that's another rant for another day.
yeah,
So.
definitely. Yeah, and we're assuming if you're joining
Yeah.
in with us, you like westerns, but you
Yep.
also like the good, the bad, the ugly. We're about to praise
Mm-hmm.
that film and gush
Oh
about
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I guess before we do, open up just like westerns in general. Like, what was
Mm.
your experience westerns growing up? What got you into westerns? Because
Well,
I definitely have some stories there.
right. I would be remiss if I didn't say right off the top, my father was a huge influence on my Western
Yeah,
uh,
same.
love. Like, as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a gangster, but also I watched westerns. The gangster part is just a funny nod. But no, as far as back I can remember, I watched, John Wayne, I watched Clint Eastwood, the Sergio Leone stuff, Lonesome Dove. I mean, I've watched it all. And granted, it took me a while to become a quote unquote, and no pun intended, super fan of westerns. But boy, when I did, like, I get it. I totally get it. So yeah, that's basically with me. My dad loves westerns. He loves. He's more of a John Wayne fan than I would say Clint Eastwood fan. But how can you not love Clint? I mean, how can you? If you are a western fan, and again, I don't mean to sound, what I was just grapping about a minute ago. But if you say you're a western fan and you don't like Clint Eastwood, you got something wrong with you, especially in a movie like this, man. What about you?
Yeah, so I loved westerns growing up. I think it's just something that's part of American culture. Like you just get introduced to westerns, and
Yep.
like yourself, it was through my dad and through my grandfather.
Yep.
And I would just play like I was a cowboy a lot. I had like the little cap guns and
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
I'd actually ride around on. We had one of those vacuum cleaners that you drug around.
Yep. Yep.
So I would ride on that thing like it was a horse or a wagon while my dad was vacuuming, and I would pretend I
Yeah.
was a cowboy.
Exactly.
And in fact, I got a Western taken away from me because I quoted it.
I
So
remember that.
I was picking up language from it. I actually said it. I said
What was the
line.
film?
It was True Grit.
No, yeah.
I used one of the things he says. I called a guy, or I called my dad a yellow-bellied bastard, and I just thought it was something cowboys said.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there we go. So I learned a lesson that day that that's a word that you don't say, especially to your dad.
No.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I loved westerns when I was a kid, but I got it out of them actually
Mm.
for a little bit. I was always a Clint Eastwood fan. Like I actually was a big fan of Dirty Harry movies
Yeah.
when I was I guess like probably too young to be into Dirty Harry movies. I was like fifth, sixth grade.
Right.
But I got back into westerns. It was probably my junior year in high school, and it was this film. Like I remember catching parts of it on TV,
Yep.
and it was the last part once they reached the graveyard, and then the duel at the end. And that was when I'd already got into like studying film a lot and just falling in love with like what the director was doing, what the music was doing.
Right.
And I was like, I got to get this movie.
Yeah.
So I went out and I bought it at a Walmart for like $6 on the DVD. I took that sucker home and watched it, and oh my gosh, like as we're about to talk about when we talk about this movie, like I fell in love with this film, and it made me fall in love with westerns. I started just Netflixing those like crazy back when you actually just ordered the discs.
Yep.
Like I was getting discs for a
I
long
remember.
time, catching up on my westerns.
I remember.
And some of them I just buy them, like the Searchers. I think that was just a blind buy. I was just like, I heard this is a good western. I'm gonna get it. But I studied them a lot. In fact, when I got into the genre that I'm heavily into right now, like the martial arts films, I used to always look at them from a Western point of view. I always looked at like, oh, there's basically the same storylines and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I just love this genre, and it's all because of this film. Really, like this film, I know it's an antithesis to a Western at one point, but at the same time, I think it's the perfect Western. I think it captures the West, but also, I don't know, it's just great filmmaking. Let's get into it. What about you? Do you remember the first time you ever watched
let's
this
go,
film?
man. Go ahead. I'm gonna follow your lead.
Okay, do you remember the first
Yes,
time you
I
ever watched this?
do, dude. Okay, so the thing that comes to mind is actually you showing me this film. Do you remember that? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I wanted to share this movie with everybody.
Yeah, I remember, and I like you, I'd seen it on TV, bits and pieces of it, but I never watched it from like start to finish. But I remember, I don't even know, how old do you think we were at that time? Do you remember?
It's probably college or high school.
Yeah, I
senior
was
year,
gonna
something like
say,
that.
I was gonna say college. I was gonna say maybe our sophomore year of college or junior, whatever it was, when I came down for the first time and we were roommates. And you're like, man, I gotta show you this film. And of course, I knew of it, obviously. Who didn't? But I'd never seen it all the way through. And I remember having such an experience with it, and watching it the other day. I had kind of a nostalgic kind of feeling of when we watched it because I'd never seen it all the way through, so I really didn't get it, coming into it. But man, I was so taken aback, and just because I was basically raised on John Wayne more than Clint Eastwood. And John Wayne has his own style. It's not bad. It's John Wayne's good, and he deserves all the credit in the world. But there was just something about what Clint did, especially as this character. And you and I discussed this over the phone the other day about him sort of being an anti-hero, especially in this film with this character. And I mean, you can just see the influence of cowboys and bandits and all these things that kind of precursed what superheroes and supervillains came to be. And I think that's why I'm such a fan, because it is an extension of maybe the superhero genre, at least a preview of it.
Yeah, that's a way of looking at it. I actually thought of that a little bit the other night when I was watching it, because these three guys, they're like a step above everybody, and that it just makes them sort of like they're super powered. Like they're only equals with each other, really. Everybody else is just kind of like, okay, I can just whip up my gun and shoot three guys in a matter of a second, while they can't even get their guns out of their holsters. I mean, that's what these guys do. So I see what you're saying. I was actually thinking like anime and stuff too, a little bit. I was like, this reminds me of like it'd be a great anime. But this film, as I was saying, this was like very special film to me. It got me into Westerns. And it's kind of because I guess the story kind of pulled me in. Like, I remember the first time I ever watched this, how you get introduced to these characters after you get introduced to the setting and everything. You're part of it. And then the movie just takes you for a ride, because after you get introduced, we see the double crossing. And then after that, we're like, okay, what's going to happen to Tuco? And then he ends up double crossing Clint's character later. And then it's just this back and forth. And before you know it, the goal gets introduced, and you're like, oh crap, I'm into this now. I'm invested in these characters. I'm invested into this stakes. And it's just a beautiful film. And I think the thing that makes it that is these three things that I got to talk about before we even start talking about the opening or the characters or anything. That's the setting, the music, and the visuals.
Right.
So let's go talk about it. What stands out to you about all these three things?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I could go on and on for each of them. I really want to talk about the music, obviously. I'm a huge music fan, so I really, really want to speak on the music. But let me go ahead and talk about the setting and the visuals and just what this movie looks like. And again, guys, we're not gonna spoil the entire film. We'll try to be kind of vague about this a little bit. But I do just want to say how impressive, and you can speak because I think you watched this on 4K.
Oh yeah.
Did you know?
Yes,
and so you can speak on this even better than I can. But oh my gosh, just the way these films look now on our TVs and Blu-ray and everything, just the vibrancy of the colors and just how everything just looks so almost like a painting, almost like a live painting, you know? And every color has its kind of own way of looking, and how everything just kind of blends together, and mirroring that with the of course the beautiful score. The score is just, oh man, chef's kiss, right? It's just it's a stunning thing. But then you have this plot, and the plot is just such a good story. It's you really don't know what to think of Clint's character at first, but then as he goes along, he gets more and more appealing, and then you're just rooting for the guy. You're just like, yeah, let's go. And then we get. So I want to hear your take on those three things though before we get into the story. Sorry.
So me, the visuals is where it starts. That's what pulled me in originally. Is because I mean, even on like the old just standard TVs coming through on cable, I thought this movie was amazing. Then I saw it on DVD, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no movie's ever looked as good as this. And I watched it on 4K the other night, and man, I just got taken to this place. That's the thing. This setting. And I think it's because he photographs things in such a like compelling way. Like he has these big old broad, just like long, extremely long shots where you see the character, but you also see everything around them. And then he goes from that to extreme close-ups. Like we're right here in this person's face and their eyes now. And I just love that juxtaposition of those two things. And it really makes you invest and makes you feel you're there, which is, I mean, that's why we watch a lot of movies is for that escapism, for that to feel like I'm there.
Yeah.
And I think the obviously the visuals, like I'm saying, just this striking scenery, which is in Spain, but it passes for the Old West a little bit. And the way they use the setting is great. I mean, we are in the desert at times. We're in these like old country towns. And then the graveyard at the end, that place, wherever they found that is amazing. It's just like this old graveyard with these big old mountains behind them.
Yep.
And it's that scene is just poetry in motion. And that's what I love about this film. And that's why the music coming in, like you were saying, like, oh man, Ennio Morricone or Ennio Morricone, however you like to say his name. Yeah. He's my favorite composer. And this film is the one that introduced me to him. And that, I mean, just what he does throughout the whole film. Because we all know the stereotypical theme for this thing. I mean, it's featured all the cartoons and everything. Yeah. But it's the other songs, the beautiful romantic ones and the ones about adventure, the ones about the duels. Those are the ones that I love. And even just the simple ones with like the Spanish guitar and stuff like that. It's just great instrumentation. And it's because he's making the most of what he has. Like, if you listen to this score compared to like a John Williams score, you can tell Morricone's like working with a lot less instruments, a lot less people. Yep. But he makes it sound so big. Like the horns are just blasting it. You got a guitar in there. You got some guys just going stuff like that. Like just a bunch of random people. But it's a great score. It's like he's a genius in my opinion, doing so much with so little.
One of my favorite parts of this score, and we could waste our whole time on the music itself. So I'll try to keep this brief. But what I loved about this score is it made this film so operatic. Like
the way of saying it.
Like you're watching an opera basically, but not at the same time, if that makes any sense. But it just has such a feel of these transitions in the way that this character goes from this point to this point. Again, I know that's how every character does in every film, because that's the way a story is told. You go from A to Z. But it's just, coupled with the music, it really invokes the emotion of the scene. And this is mostly a very tense and very, word I'm looking for, kind of film. But there's these lighthearted moments in the scores like that. But then and we'll get to the end, obviously, but when you get to that point, you could probably watch that scene without any noise at all and still get something out of it. But think about it, and you know, because
if you take the music out, it ruins it.
It ruins it, exactly, because it just really sets up. This is a huge part. This is exactly what we've been building to. How's it going to end? Who, what's going to happen? Because there's no clear-cut answer. You can't tell me, unless you've seen this movie 50,000 times like we both have now. You can't tell me watching this film, you know exactly what's going to happen just based on how the scene's going. So I think that's one of the biggest things this film does for me as a viewer, is it really, as you said, does a good job of escapism, and the music's to huge credit for that.
Yeah, definitely. And just speaking of a few things you said, like it's very emotional music. Like I feel it. I feel this music, and they heighten the scene. Like we were saying, that last scene, like in a movie nowadays, it'd just be like these guys would be shooting at each other, going crazy, be jumping around. I mean, we'd be going all John Woo or something. But this film does the action just with the editing and the music, really, because these guys are just looking at each other, but at the same time we're in it, we are stressed out, and that's just a beautiful scene. We'll come to it later. I watched it 2 times in a row the other night just because I was
did. I remember.
I was just like, did I actually just see this? Is it really that good? And it was that good. So let's get into the film. We've kind of glossed over a lot of stuff. But I want to get into it before we get too far out of time. So this film opens like all of his films did at this time in the 60s, with this like animated stuff, with the just the music bringing that back again.
Mm.
And we had our classic theme going. But
Mm.
to me, I really like this opening because I've been saying the whole time, this like draws you in.
Mm.
This is setting the tone. You're about to go on
Mm.
some Western adventure, and it's to the land of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm.
And we see these visuals of like the Civil War and stuff. And just right there, it's already bringing you in. What do you think about just how this film opens?
It like you said, it really sets the tone. It reminded me just the other day, I think it was yesterday, I was watching first John Wick film, and I think John Wick was very inspired by what this movie does. Is it says you're going for a ride. You are going to be strapped in your chair for ever how long the film is, and you're going to go a ride for this character. And it reminded me a little bit maybe of a James Bond film. It's a very tone setting opening to where you know what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's the way you have to start a film like this. I mean, it's intense, but it's also like, a little mysterious, maybe. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the character. You really do not know what to think about this character, much like John Wick, I think. Until really the end, and even then, you're kind of left in the dark. So I think that's what this opening does really well. Is it makes you intrigued and like, I don't know what's about to happen, but I really, really want to find out. And so, credit to the editing of this opening, and just how it really makes you excited to go on this adventure.
Yeah, and I think you're just saying it's a group of just guys that are kind of anti-heroes, and you're just trying to figure out which one of these guys am I going to side with. Or actually,
Yeah.
we should say one of them's totally bad, but we'll get to him later. But
Yeah.
that's what I like about this film is starting with just our first guy that get introduced to is Tuco.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a dual lead. I think Tuco is just as much of a central character as Clint's Joe is. I think, or Blondie is what he's called in this one. I think both of them are part of it. I like how they introduced Tuco. Is we get after the credits, we get introduced to these three guys, and they're storming this one guy by himself. And Tuco, he shows you what he is. I assume the way this went down, because we don't see it. We see these three guys charge in, just kicking down the door. We're gonna come in shooting our guns, and it seems like Tuco doesn't even wait to see who they are. He is just shooting.
Right.
And that's what I like about his character is he's going to do whatever he can to survive. And he does it right here at the start, and he doesn't mind if he looks stupid doing it because he jumps out the window. He's got like it looks like he's in the middle of a shave or something. And
Yep.
What does he got in his hand? I couldn't figure that out. I paused it the other night.
I was going to ask you too. Yeah.
Is it a chicken or is it a knife? I couldn't tell.
I don't know. Does anybody know?
Yeah, I don't know, but he jumps out this window, just shot these three guys.
Yeah.
And that's his life. He's just the man that is always kind of pushing it and doing what he can. As we hear his rap sheet at one point, it's like, man, this he's done a lot. He's wanted in a lot of different counties. And at the same time, we like him. Like he's sort of a dubious one like that. I heard that's why they call him the ugly. Like it's different in Italian. It means more like not like he looks ugly, but like he's just kind of ugly morals and he's kind of conflicted. And that's what I like about his character. He is conflicted. He's kind of like the in between these two characters.
I was about to say, do you feel like that he's sort of in the middle of Blondie and Tuco?
Yeah, he's like in the Angel Eyes is definitely the bad.
Yeah,
I think Blondie becomes good as the film goes on, but Tuco is he's just kind of back and forth. Like he'll do a good thing for somebody, but then he'll go and like rob this guy and steal all the guns, steal all the money from his shop, and basically, okay, you're out of business now. Okay, I'll see you. I mean, he does some pretty terrible stuff in this film. But at the same time, like I said, I like him. I feel bad when he shows up to his brother's house. And he's like so happy. He's like, "It's my brother, the priest." And he's so excited, but then his brother's like, "How dare you show your face here? Our mother is dead. And I did not call you because you were bad." And then he's like, "Forget you." And he punches his own brother or something. But he's just compelling character. And I love Eli Wallach how he plays him because he's all over the place and makes him a very dynamic character to watch.
Yeah, that's the thing about this film. And I'm so glad that I have you here because one of the things about this film that I think frustrated me at first, but then I've just grown, is the plot is kind of all over the place. It's, at least from my point of view, but the visuals and just the way these characters go about their business, so to speak, make this film so easy to watch that you forget that you're frustrated because you don't know what's going on. But I think that's what really sets this film apart for me, is the way this is shot, the way the characters are, the intensity of every performance. Because there's not really a bad performance, or at least not one that comes to mind for me. How about you, man? Is there any characters or any performance? Is there anything about this film? Because I know we're saying mostly positive things. Is there anything for you that stands out in your mind that just really, if it wasn't there, this movie may be even better, which is unbelievable to even try to, because I can't think of one.
No, that's a dumb question. It's not a good one.
I know.
Yeah, nah, there's nothing bad. Like, I was thinking about what you were saying, like, even like the small characters, like you can tell Sergio Leone just like looked around and was like, okay, this guy, not that guy. Like, he didn't care about their acting so much. It was just more like, how do they look?
No.
Because all these lines are dubbed in. Like, that's an interesting thing that could throw some people off. I mean, I guess that if you want to say a negative, for some people, the dubbing of the voices would definitely be something, because it is a little bit jarring. It's like you can tell this guy is not in this setting when he's saying these lines sometimes. And this voice is coming out of this person. Like, it doesn't look like it sometimes, but that doesn't ruin it for me because I'm just used to that. I'm used to that type of filmmaking because, and on their end, it was pretty smart because now they don't have to mic them for sound or anything. And basically we can easily translate this into 3 or 4 different languages like they did just right off the bat.
Do you feel like that, first of all, let me ask this. Do you feel like the plot makes sense? Do you feel like it is?
Oh yeah, it's very simple. I mean, that's the thing that's cool about it. As I would plan on getting the plot a little bit later, but because this movie doesn't get into plot right away. I think it's compelling. I mean, we got basically this money got stolen by old Bill Carson, and then he tried to hide it, but he got killed. So luckily, our friend Tuca and Blondie, they found out where it is, and now they form this sort of alliance to try to find this gold. So that's what it is. It's just a classic story about greed. It's about what are people going to do to get themselves on top and try to get this gold for themselves. So that's pretty much the rest of the plot after that. Is once that gets established, they're working together. Sometimes Angel Eyes comes in because he knows where the gold is, but he doesn't know which grave. So he and I don't know. I think it's a very simple plot. I just think the way it gets there is very interesting.
I feel like there's stuff that's not explained right away, and maybe this is my gripe. Maybe this is just me. I feel like there's things that are not explained, or at least I miss right away, that by the time we get to the mid portion of the film, or even the closing, that even though it's exciting, I feel like sometimes I've missed stuff. And so I think that's what makes me feel a little bit confused because, I just have concentration problems anyway. So, but that's the thing. If you go back to what we were talking about with the visuals and the music and everything, there's still so much to admire about this film that for me, in my experience, the plot almost takes a back seat. And maybe because it's so simple, I'm making it complicated, if that makes any sense. So, because for me, when I think about this film, I think about the things we talked about. I think about the music. I think about the just painting, like visual of the landscape and everything. But then also, especially when we get to the end, we'll talk about the end in a second, it's just how everybody looks. Even when nothing is being said, you hear so much as far as emotion and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think it is a deceptively simple film. I mean, get what you're saying. Like, it is a simple plot. It could be just all style over substance. Right. But I think there is a lot of substance here. Like, I think these characters are actually written very well. I mean, just the idea of setting it during the Civil War is a good idea, because we get to see that, hey, what these guys are, they're pretty bad, especially Angel Eyes. He's bad, but war is really bad, what it does to men. And I think that's a cool thing that they kind of write in there. Yeah. But we already talked about Tuco a little bit. I guess we should get into Blondie because he's our second guy that actually, never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. Angel Eyes is the next guy introduced. And his intro scene is It's awesome. We have this
Mm-hmm.
family
Yep.
hanging out. He rides up.
Mm.
And he doesn't say anything for like 3 or 4 minutes. He just stands
Mm.
there in the doorway and just looks at
Yeah.
him. And what do you think about this
Again,
character? What do you think about Lee Van Cleef, this character, and just what he does in this film?
oh, he might be my favorite character besides Clint Eastwood. I really love his intro. There's just something about the way, and there's a lot of look. There's a lot. The way they capture the face in this film is just brilliant, and I think no better example of that is when we get to this character, and it's you just see there's a lot of stuff going on with him even before he's like you said he says anything, and I love that. I love the fact that he's so intriguing, and you're like, okay, what's this guy's deal? Is he a good guy? Obviously not. Um,
No, they tell you that pretty soon. I mean, he
yeah,
kills a little kid before our
exactly.
eyes.
Right.
Yes.
I was about to say that. I was like, but then you're like, oh, okay, he's not good. Okay, so he's not the good part of the good, bad, and the ugly. Spoiler alert, as we said. Uh, but I love that just because he's just so interesting and I guess menacing is a good word. Violent, obviously. But yeah, his intro is quite intriguing and one of my favorite parts of the film. I think just because of how intriguing he is and how you're just like, okay, what's going on here? And then that happens and you go, all right, so we got a little bit dark here. But I obviously that's just how this movie is.
Yeah. And that's what I like about Sergio Leone westerns is they're pretty rough.
Mm,
And that's what kind of stood out to me the first time I
yeah.
watched it. Is this is not your I'm wearing a white hat, I'm wearing a
Yep.
black hat.
Yep.
Even the guys that were in the black hats, I mean, they're
Mm.
bad. I mean, this guy, Angel Eyes, I mean, this is the guy that I guess Quentin Tarantino rips off for his Hans Landa character.
Yes.
This first scene reminds me a lot of that first scene.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so he comes in here and he kills this guy
Mm.
after the guy pays him to kill the guy that hired him. So he kills them both. And
Mhm.
that just the part where he's like, oh yeah, one more thing. And he takes a pillow and throws it over that
Yeah.
guy's head and shoots him in the face. And like, this
Yeah.
guy is bad. And then they tell you he's
Yeah.
the bad. And then after that, next time you go to him, he's just beating this girl up,
Oh
trying to
yes.
get
Oh
information from her, saying,
yeah.
where is it? And just like, it's so rough. And
Yeah.
then turns out he's also this bad that he's going to pretend to be a soldier
Mm.
just so he can get information. And then he's just torture soldiers while he's there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much all he's doing. He's just
Yeah.
terrible, terrible guy. But at the same
Yeah.
time, because it is Lee Van Cleef, he's compelling.
Mm.
He's like you said, he acts so much with his mannerisms. Like even when he
Mhm.
just sits down there and starts eating that Mexican food at the
Mm.
beginning, it's just like, man, this is like intentional acting. He's trying to send a message with everything he's doing.
Exactly.
And he's just really good. And I mean, the only person I think does him by doing so little with a lot, or does a lot with so little, is
Mhm.
Clint Eastwood as Blondie, who I like his intro too. They all have great intros.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, he just shows up out of nowhere and just guns down like 3 or 4 guys right there,
Mhm.
and he takes Tuco in and does like he was doing in the first 2 movies. He's just in it for the money.
Yeah.
That's the striking thing about Blondie is he's just gonna try to get his cash, and
Yeah.
he's good at what he does.
Yeah. And that's the thing about we talked about westerns and just how each of them are different. And if you're not a western fan, you haven't seen these films. First of all, while you're watching this, no, I'm just playing. But if you watch this film and then maybe a John Wayne film, I think the biggest thing is the intensity that they take. And with a film like this, and there's this much violence and the extent of it, I think that's the biggest difference with these Western films. And do you feel like going a bit darker? Do you feel like taking these chances uh, sometimes can be too big of a risk? Or do you feel like, it's just whatever you like?
I think it's good because I mean
Yeah,
you're trying to be actually more realistic. I mean,
true.
even
True
as
that.
crazy it is to see this guy whip out his gun and shoot 3 or 4 guys down like in
Mm,
a second,
well,
it's. I mean, if we lived back then, these men
right,
that we're talking about would have been bad men, at least not having the same morals we have.
right.
And it it captures that. It
Yeah.
captures sort of the dark side of that.
Yeah.
And sort of these guys that carved out their own rules, their own sort of code. And I don't know, I like that, especially the stuff with the Civil War. I think they do a good job of capturing just how ruthless and how terrible that war was.
Yeah.
And I like that.
You know as well as I do, there were people that existed back then that were bad. Now we've kind of glamorized them with film, like Tombstone and stuff like that, but they actually existed and they actually did some bad things. And I'm with you. I think we have to see that. I think we have to remind ourselves because bad people obviously still exist nowadays, and I feel like sometimes we kind of tolerate that. But at the same time, you know, people like you and me can watch this film and we know the difference between that. You know, we're not going to do that. But a lot of people say, well, they get exposed to that and it turns other people into weirdo, you know, really bad people. So
I don't know where you're going with this.
well, what I'm saying is the extent of these characters, especially in this film, because there is the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think what I like about, and I understood this is something I did take away from my viewing, is that the ugly is almost like the worst than the bad. I mean, there's just levels and stuff. And so it's just, I think it's a perspective thing is it kind of where I'm going with it. So.
Yeah, I don't think he's that bad. I think Tuco does some bad stuff. He's morally confused.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I describe him a little bit more. He's
that's
not bad.
That's a good way.
Like he doesn't shoot kids in this film. He doesn't punch any women in the face. He did do some stuff apparently with some animals and some women apparently back in the day. He did some bad stuff, but I don't know. I guess because Weila Wallach plays him as such a lovable, like sort of scoundrel. Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem like he's bad, and that's why I kind of like the ending, how he doesn't die. I think that's pretty cool, but not there yet. So we've talked a little about some of the key scenes so far. There's a few others I want to kind of get into, and I guess it happens about halfway through the movie, and it's the part that kind of jumped out. Actually, never mind. I want to backtrack. I was going to get into the whole prison camp scene, but I want to talk about that scene I kind of alluded to earlier with Tuco getting the gun. Do you have any thoughts on that scene? I just love that scene. And
go ahead.
I want to see if you think he's bad okay, I'll go ahead, I guess. I love that scene because we just saw this guy so low. Like he basically nearly died in the desert. And he comes into this town. He asks for some water. This guy helps him out. And then he just basically takes over the story. He's just like, I want to try gun. He tries it out. He basically builds a gun right there, tries all these different ones, makes one that's just like top notch. And then he just basically steals the guy's bullets and steals his money and rides off. And it's just a scene that's kind of funny. Just the way it's played. But at the same time, I really find it compelling seeing how just good this guy is at what he does, that it's a little different. He's not going to look as cool at it as Clint's character, but he's still pretty competent. He still knows what he's doing when he gets a 6-piece in his hand or 6.
I think he's a good match for Blondie. I think he kind of can hold his own against him. I don't think Blondie's intimidated necessarily by the guy, but I think there is some mutual admiration for the two characters. And I think that's what you get in a good story is you get these characters that they're obviously enemies. They obviously don't like each other, but there's this connection there. And I think of all the characters that you come across in this film, I think this is the guy, at least for my money, that kind of can compete the best with what Blondie, or what'd you say his real name? I can't remember what his real name is.
His real name is Joe, and like in some of the credits they say Joe, but I think in Good, Bad, and the Ugly they only call him Blondie.
But I think he's probably the best comparison to Clint Eastwood's character.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to what you're saying, and that's why I think this movie's like a dual lead, like I was saying. I think Leone gives just as many good Tuco scenes as he does Blondie scenes. And that might rub some people the wrong way. That's why they might say for a few dollars more, a fistful of dollars is better than this one. But I like this one a lot. And I like sort of after we get as going back to the scene I originally want to talk about, the
Mm-hmm.
prison camp scene is where this movie kind of gets kind of serious for me, because it captures sort of the terrible nature of like prison camps, and especially during the Civil War.
Yeah.
And that scene that really touches me is the one with the guys playing the music while Tuco's being interrogated. But he's basically getting beat up, and these musicians know that they're like basically playing the music, and they're like, this guy's getting beat up in there, and you can tell it's wrecking them. But at the same time, that's such a beautiful scene because the music's so good, and just what's happening. And we're seeing violence happen. In one scene, as we cut from this to these guys playing music, it's just like the beautiful and the ugly all happen at once, and it's just a really cool scene.
Yeah, to me, it kind of explains what I was saying about the opera style. I felt like this was a very operatic kind of maybe dark opera or musical theater or whatever you want to say kind of thing, because it really sets the scene of the. It really matches what you're watching, the visuals, and then with the music. And again, I cannot say enough. And this may be one of my favorite parts of the music, just because of how well it describes, hey, this is what's going on. It's not fun. It's not, an exciting thing. It's almost tragic. It's almost kind of,
Yeah, because you listen to how the guys are singing. It's just like,
yeah.
It's just like, it's like such sad sounding music.
Exactly.
And at the same time, it's very beautiful. I love
hauntingly beautiful.
The guy with the harmonica coming in. And it's just really cool. It starts with that big sweeping shot as you see like all the musicians, and you see Blondie just sitting there looking, and then you have that ugly guy sitting there like, keep playing that fiddle. And just and like I said, it keeps going back to Tuco, who's getting his butt kicked in there, and just getting like his teeth wrung out, all sorts of bad stuff. And after that, we get a cool Blondie moment. I got to bring this one up. Is he just walks in and he sees what's happened, and he's just like, "You're not gonna try that to me, are you?" And they're like, "No."
Yeah.
Because I don't know, that would have been an interesting scene. Them tried to do that to him, but I just love his character. His just reaction. He's like, it's not going to work.
No.
Can't do that to me. I mean, that's what I love about Clint's character. Is, as you were saying earlier, sort of a superhero. Like anytime somebody gets the drop on him, the movie actually writes in something that kind of shows you why. Like that scene where he shoots all those guys as he's getting out of like the shower or something. Like you saw him. He didn't have enough time to load his bullets. He's like, he would have been fine to get Tuco if he had his gun fully loaded, but he's out of bullets. I mean, it's a lot of stuff like that. Anything stand out to you about his character in this middle part of the film?
That's something that I really like, though, is it does show that he's human. He's not superhuman. He's not going to do everything. But again, you just see this presence that nobody else in my memory really has, like when he is on screen, because he's just so freaking intense. But I like that. I like that they make him human as well, that he's not some sort of superhuman or an android or anything like that, that he makes mistakes, and is they're very honest about that. And I think that really adds to the appeal of the character and the movie as a whole.
Yeah, this is part I like because it shows you his sort of dubious nature. He just changes partners right there.
Yep.
He's like, okay, I'll go with you because you're getting me out of this prison.
Right.
Sorry, Tuco. Hate that something bad's going to happen to you. It just changes right there. And then later meets up with Tuco again. He's like, okay, I'd rather be with you because Angel Eyes is kind of a bad partner. No. More ways to split the money. I don't like that. Nope. So I like that part. We have that cool little shootout in the city, which it could be the end of a lot of films. Like that seems like that should be the climax because they take out those 3 or 4 guys that were with Angel Eyes, but then we have like 40 minutes of the film left. And to me, that's when it really gets good, when they get to the bridge and they meet up with that soldier and talk to him about war and everything, and then they have to blow up the bridge. I don't know. I just really love this part of the film. What do you think about just this sort of disheveled soldier and sort of like how he's getting drunk every day because they have to go fight?
I'm really glad that the film didn't end where you said, because I agree with you. I think a lot of films end like that, but I like that they kind of say, okay, yeah, no, we're going to go a little bit further. And so the stakes are still there. The resolution is still to come. And again, like I said earlier in the film, at least for my money, you don't know at first watch how this is going to go. And because you think everything's going to be wrapped up right there with what we were just talking about. We're like, no, we're going to keep going. So it's like you can't predict how this is going to resolve. And we'll talk about the conclusion here in just a second. But I think the buildup of what you were talking about just a second ago, I think it really adds to the intrigue of where they're going to go with this. And is Blondie going to live? Is he actually going to make it out of this? Because let me tell you, I remember thinking, and I think we discussed this before. I didn't think he was going to make it to the end of the film. I felt like there was something that was going to happen, whether he's going to get shot, whatever. Uh, again, spoiler when we get to the end to what happened, but I think this part of the film really is intriguing because there's still so much that we don't know and that we can't really figure out as first time watchers anyway. And I think that adds to the overall intrigue of this narrative.
Yeah, and that's why this film is epic, because it does have this scope. It doesn't just end with a shootout. It keeps going.
No.
And we keep going with these characters. And like I was saying earlier, the most compelling part of this story is sort of what you were getting into, is the greed of these men. And greed generally gets people killed. And
yeah,
it does feel like that. And I think it's whenever Blondie sees these guys is when he comes the good. When he saw after the experience in the prison camp, but then when he sees these soldiers out here basically killing each other, and he says that great line, he's like, never so I don't remember actually what he says, but he says never so many died for like nothing, basically. And because he's just watching these people that have been fighting and killing each other for days on end with no meaning behind it. And yeah, he kills guys, but it's nothing on the scale of war. And because he's like, this is my realm. I am a killer. I'm a gunslinger. I've signed up for this. Meanwhile, these guys got drafted, or some of them might have volunteered, but they didn't do it to just kind of like do what they're doing. And I think this is a really part of the film because it changes him a little bit. I think the Blondie earlier in the film probably would have killed Tuco. Like he would have shot him dead like he does Angel Eyes, but he doesn't. Yeah, what do you think about that? I don't know. You haven't really commented on the Civil War stuff. What do you think about all that inclusion?
Well, I think it just adds to the anticipation of what's going to happen because, as you said, you think it's kind of like I was watching the Buster Scruggs thing the other day, and there's this one with I forget his name, and he's going to get hung, and so you think he's going to die, and then that gets thwarted, and then he ends up getting hung again. But that's kind of here. It's like all these things happen, and you think, okay, that guy's going to die. Oh no, that and there's just a lot of drama and back and forth, and as we said, intensity, and I think that's what makes this movie, so epic.
Yeah, it's definitely epic because it just keeps building, and the visuals just keep getting better and better. And I like how it gets to we just have our three guys. They're the last characters that matter. Is like they've been kind of doing their games all while this war's been going on, but eventually that war doesn't matter. It's like all that matters is this gold and what happens to these guys. And that's what it really stood out to me this time watching is just how much I felt connection to these characters. Angel Eyes not as much, but definitely Tuco and Blondie's. Like I felt like I was walking with them, and I really wanted to see them come out and do it. So like when Tuco gets to the graveyard and he's running through it, just in ecstasy, they're playing that song, "The Ecstasy of Gold."
Oh man, I love it. I love that.
That is just that's just intense. One of the most beautiful scenes ever in history of film.
Yes, yeah. It's the marriage of music and visual, and talking about him running and everything is just that score. And it's like you said earlier, I don't know how many people are in this arrangement. Did you ever find, do you ever know, do you know?
It's not much. I would say it's probably 10, 12 people, I would think, like
Yeah.
musicians.
But I mean, there's just the way that they have this, and again, the score is just. If you guys haven't heard this score other than just the theme song, you're really doing yourself a disservice, especially here, because again, it just adds to the I don't know what the word is, the intensity. I guess is the best word for it, and talk about the some of the shots in this scene in particular. I want to hear from you. What do you think makes this part of this film just so visually stunning?
It's marriage of the setting that they're in.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I said earlier, this graveyard with all these just
Uh-huh.
graves, and you don't see the
Yeah.
names on them. That's just kind of like
Yeah.
endless. They all look the
Yep.
same. So that
Yep.
visual with these gigantic mountains in the background and the way they
Mm.
shoot it at like a low angle, it's like
Yep.
these men are as big as these mountains almost.
Yep.
And they're just gigantic, and they're out here in this is just the way that it's photographed, where we just, like I was saying earlier, these big extreme
Mm.
long shots where we just feel the setting and we see our guy running around.
Yeah.
And of course the music, like we've been saying over and over, it's a great song. I mean, rappers have sampled this song because it's awesome. It's featured in a Modelo
It
concert
is.
or not commercial because
It
it's
is.
awesome. It's
Yeah.
a great moment in film, and then it builds up to this final duel where we get to see it happen, where these three
Mm.
mammoth guys are going to have a
Mm.
good old fashioned showdown.
Mm.
And I don't know. I think this is. I was just saying the graveyard scene is my favorite scene.
Mm.
This duel is my
I
favorite scene.
mean, come on, guys. This is what you're building. We've been building to the entire time, and what we're getting to. And I've said it before, and I'll repeat myself. It is the lack of dialogue that I think makes this scene exactly what it is. They
Mm-hmm.
could have written words here. They could have written a conversation, maybe even a good one. I don't know, but it's just the stare down, just the immense, intense stare down. Especially, I mean, because Clint Eastwood has it down. I mean, he is the Mac Daddy of the stare. But these other guys, especially Tuco, because he is scared out of his wits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is literally. Uh, he looks just like the most frightened person ever in his life. But yeah, he's still trying to match Blondie's intensive. Blondie's not scared of nothing. There is no fear in that man's eyes at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is stone faced. But the contraction with him and Tuco, it's just like, do you get better than that? I mean, how do you make a film in like that? And then of course he yells what he yells, and then boom,
But
it's
yeah, but I see what you're saying, and that's what I love about it is, and I'm glad you picked up on that. Is his character?
mm,
This is his life. This is his what he
yeah,
does. He's a gunslinger. So
yep,
for him, when he gets into a duel like this,
yep,
it's life or death. He knows it,
yes,
and he's
exactly,
accepted that. Meanwhile,
right,
the other two guys, they might have killed people before, but this time it's different. It's
yeah,
like they're both shaking. They're like, oh my
yeah,
gosh. And meanwhile, he's the only one that's just, like you're saying, just staring. And
yeah,
like he's just as calm as a cucumber. He's just like, okay, when it's time to
oh,
go, I'm going to draw, and I'm going to kill him.
yep,
And I love that. And I love this whole scene just because it builds up. It creates so much intensity. It tells a story just with
yeah,
visuals.
yeah,
Because we can get in these guys' heads of what they're
mm,
thinking.
yeah.
And I really like that aspect because I've never been in a duel personally. But
Hope
it's,
not to be right.
yeah, but in this setting with these guys, it's really cool to kind of live in their shoes and
Yeah,
see what happens. And
yeah,
it it it's over pretty fast, and
it
that's what
is.
I love about it. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to go run behind a rock and hide and
Yeah,
shoot you and
yeah,
stuff. No, it's like
right.
one shot, boom, and
Yep.
it shows you yet again that
Mm,
this guy Blondie, he's not so bad. He took Tuco's gun or bullets out the night before, so that
Mm.
way he didn't have to shoot Tuco.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, he does shoot Angel Eyes and shoots his hat and, just keeps shooting.
Yep.
But then we get this ending that I don't know. I used to not like it as much.
Really?
In fact, this is the part. The first I told you that I picked it up on the graveyard scene,
Yeah.
but I think actually the first time I ever watched this movie is I tuned in this part where he's got Tuco kind of tied up here and he's hanging.
Mm.
And I was just like, I don't know about this movie.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you just come in right then and like, okay,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
bad. He's just got this guy basically torturing him here, and I wasn't a fan of it, but now I like it just because Blondie just shows you, like, hey, remember when you did this to me earlier in the
Yeah.
film? Getting
Yeah.
you back, man.
Yeah. Well,
And
you gotta understand these characters. You gotta understand where they came from. You gotta understand the context of the scene. And yeah, if you just flipped on your television, you saw this, especially at a younger age, when you don't have the experiences that we now have as 30 and almost 40-year-olds. It really does change how you view this scene. And I'm with you. I think as a younger person, I probably was just like, I mean, it's cool, but whatever. They're just looking at each other. But that's the thing. They're acting. They are really, truly, in the greatest sense of the word, in my opinion, actors, where they don't have to say a word,
yeah,
but you get emotion. And even like I said, Blondie's stone faced, and the other guy is scared out of his wits. And the other guy is also the same way. These guys are intense, but they are not on the level that Clint Eastwood is. And that's when I think, especially the other guy, realizes, holy crap, this guy is going to get us. We're done for.
Mhm.
So that's what I love about this scene is just seriously, because any dialogue, and there's been so many scenes like this where you hear, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to shoot me? Are you going to do this? Is this going to happen? No, there's none of that. And I think that's what, to me, and I'm sure you as well, really puts this film in this like just classic. I mean, we use that word a lot in regards to film, but man, I don't think you get any more classic, especially with this ending.
Yeah, it's so memorable, and I really like how it, like, I don't know, the ending really worked for me this time, just because
Yeah, yeah,
he's sitting there, you're hearing the music, the doo 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 doo,
mhm,
just the drums, and he's like starting
yeah,
to ride off, but then he turns around and he shoots
yeah,
Tuco down, and
yeah,
the movie's pretty much over at that, but
yeah.
it hits me what he's done. He's basically saved Tuco. Like, it looked like he was gonna to ride off and just let him die there,
Ooh,
but
ooh,
instead, because he's the good now, he's
yeah,
just like, okay, I'm gonna let you live, Tuco.
yeah,
Go say hello to your brother for me,
yeah,
and just kind of rides off. And even leaves Tuco some money. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I
yeah,
think earlier in the film, he was taking all the gold
yeah,
and just been greedy about it. But instead, he's just
mm,
like, I'm gonna take my part. I'm gonna let this guy sweat a little bit because he pulled one over me earlier this film, and I wasn't
yeah,
happy about that. And then the music just comes in yet again, and just
mhm,
we ride off with him. And I say this time when I was watching it, it was weird. I thought I was tripping. I just
yeah,
felt like I was in this
yeah,
guy's boots, riding
yeah,
on the saddle,
right.
going off on this landscape.
Mm,
And that's what made me have to basically watch this last 40 minutes again, because I was like,
mm,
that was insane. That was crazy. I can't believe I just got this into this film. And I guess it's the magic of this film, is it brings
yeah,
you in, it makes you really invested in these characters. And yeah, Blondie in particular is not saying a lot,
mm,
but that's okay.
no,
Every time he says something, it makes it mean more, I think, because he
mm.
doesn't say much.
Yeah, I totally 100% with you. And it's we talked about at the top about escapism, and I think that's what makes the appeal of westerns what they are, is they are an escapism. And especially as we get further and further away from that time period, it becomes even more almost mythical of a time period. And I mean, yes, they're bad guys. They're totally bad guys, but we just love to watch them. We love to see what they're going to do. And to me and my money, this is the how you end a film like this. You make it as epic as possible, and you really want to be there. You like you said,
Mhm.
you feel like you're there. You feel like you are on this guy's back, like just like, hey, I'm going with you on this. And then when it's over, you're just like, man, I'm tired because it's such a ride, but in every possible good way that there is.
Yeah, and it's such a rush. Like I
Mm,
remember like basically
you-
clapping the other night when that final
yeah,
credit shows
yeah,
up. I
yeah,
would like raise my fist and started clapping. I was just,
yeah,
and I've seen this movie several times, but
yeah,
it's just a really magical film, and it brought
yeah,
me in. It's just great. I think everybody should watch it if you
yeah.
haven't already. It made me a Western fan. And I guess it probably isn't for everybody because it is a little bit slow.
Mm,
If you're just into like, I got to watch. If I'm watching a movie with guys with guns, we got to be shooting
yeah.
guns all the time. But to me, it really works,
All
and
right.
I do find it very compelling.
So before we close it up, and thank you so much for watching with us. If you watch later, thank you so much for that. But before we close, I want to ask you a question, man.
Okay.
If somebody were to say, okay, I want to get into Westerns, but except this film, I want you to tell me a film to go watch. What would you suggest?
Well, I'd have to know the person a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
think if they like a little grittier side,
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go for the first film in this series, The Fistful of Dollars,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just your simple story. You got these
Yeah.
two warring families in a town.
Yeah.
Loner comes in. He's awesome with a gun, hires himself out to both sides, gets them
Mm,
pitted against each other. It's just great. So
yeah.
it's a very simple story, executed beautifully. But if they not into that, if they don't like the
Mm-hmm.
violence, they don't
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
grittier anti-hero type thing,
Mm.
it gets a little bit harder. Um,
Right.
just because I mean, there's so many good ones,
Yeah.
and I guess it's just you have to find that one that clicks with you.
Yeah.
Because I think for some people, Outlaw Josie Wells might be your thing. This story
Mm-hmm.
of revenge, a guy that his
Yeah.
family got taken away from him, and he goes out on the I mean the classic revenge story that we see a lot of time in westerns, or
Right.
maybe it's The Searchers, maybe it's Stagecoach,
Mm.
or maybe if you want to go more recent, Unforgiven or Tombstone or something like that, or even 310 to Yuma. Both versions work very well. I mean, there's just so many great ones. I probably wouldn't turn them on to something like Red River right off the bat, or Paint Your Wagon or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blazing Saddles might work for some people.
I'm telling you, yeah, for real. Okay, so for me, if you would have asked me this 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I would have had a lot of answers. True Grit, both
Mhm.
versions, by the way, the Coen Brothers and John Wayne's version. But I think what Coen Brothers did with Buster Scruggs is just phenomenal. Like if you're a newbie, and maybe I should have said that. Maybe if you're a newbie into wrestling, into westerns, um, go watch this because this is not just one film about one character. Yes, film's called Buster Scruggs, and the first story it's broken down into I think like 6 different stories, and the first one is Buster Scruggs. But for me, I mean, it just every story is so appealing and everything, and it's got its own style. It's got its own tone, and none of them intersect with either one. So if you guys have Netflix and you haven't watched Buster Scruggs, you guys gotta go check that out. I was blown away. There's a gold prospector. Have you seen Buster Scruggs? I can't even remember,
I
dude.
have not.
Okay, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but there's a gold prospector played by Tom Waits. Yes, the rock star from the '80s, Tom Waits plays this gold prospector, and it may be my favorite favorite part of the film, other than Buster. So
Hmm.
we'll talk about that later.
That's
Like I
why you
said,
asked this question. You just wanted to plug this film.
I
Yeah.
did. So I had to find an excuse to, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Uh, Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you so much for watching. Steve, this is a whole lot of fun. Made me want to go watch this film all over again. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. We're going to do a lot more lives. I think we're basically going to do live, at least for the next little bit. So
Mhm.
If you're not watching us live, but you've stumbled on us later on, thank you so much for that. Please give us a like and subscribe, and stay tuned, because we're gonna have a lot of westerns. We're gonna have some more. We've done a lot of martial arts films, and I think we're gonna do quite a few more. So big things ahead of us, huh?
Yeah, I mean, plan on streaming a few times. Christmas break coming up.
Yep.
A little more time, so hopefully we work it out.
Hope you guys are having a nice Christmas holiday, and hope everybody's having a good time. And we look forward to talking with you guys next time. So please give us a like if you love this video, and join us and subscribe to our channel. And we'll see you next time on SuperCaZt Live. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.
See you.